So I am reviewing the live stream of the radar and the news coverage for December 10th and December 11th, 2021. It was the Midwest tornado outbreak in the United States. And so I'm continuing to examine these the weather patterns, and I see that it's very curious how normally with weather masses, they kind of pool together as they're moving, because you can explain all weather with hot air, cold air, and the temperature differences. The weather on the earth is being made by um, the movement of warm and cool air, and they move in patterns, and there's a rotation of the planet, and the only things that have can make like dramatic impacts on the atmosphere of the earth to disrupt these weather systems, other than just the normal collision of these warm and cold, is something like maybe a solar flare. The sun's constantly, exploding and sending off, flares, and they intercept with the Earth's atmosphere, and that those energies, create fluxes in the atmosphere. However, anything that is impacting the atmosphere and affecting these weather systems is going to create distinct signature patterns. And so we are looking at this radar map, and there is the weather is moving together. However, it doesn't seem to pool. It's not as it's not like as with many of the weather systems. It's just a kind of pooling of the weather. This has distinct areas of great um, disturbance, and then in between, it's like you know areas of stillness, actually. So I'm looking at the radar map, and I see complete gray, and this map is over hundreds of miles. It's showing the state, okay? And so these are miles of spaces. And then you see these intense lines, and I think that in the image that I'm looking at, it's very much like a claw. You see high activity, high activity, high activity, and a little stream, and then you see way off over here a little intensity, and then a high activity. So you're thinking, okay, and then this is very dormant, but it does very much look like fingers and a palm. Not all of it is intensified on the map. The greatest intensities seem to be a few finger lines, and the way that they are presenting this outbreaks, and they're saying um, explaining which how it's intensified in it seems like almost two lines, and the lines were more distinct as we were watching the approach onto what we're now looking at. That's Oklahoma, and now we're in, I guess this is Kentucky. Okay, yeah, we're in the Kentucky area is where it's approaching, when it was more towards wherever Oklahoma. Okay, it was two distinct weather lines. It was almost as if there was a trail system moving this way, a trail moving. It was like twins, and it was a very long, hundreds and hundreds of miles going across the states where they move parallel. Here, I guess they probably have it zoomed in. It's three fingers, and they are in the central part of the state, miles large. So I think that if we wanted to explain this and I think it's very curious how I forget if it was ABC or NBC. The weatherman keeps saying, you're looking at the areas of destruction, and you're seeing this complete devastation where the tornado touched down. Its houses completely obliterated and demolished, and then houses beside them standing perfectly upright, untouched. And he said, he continues throughout his broadcast, 10 minutes long, and he's talking to, I think it was the mayor, giving an interview, and he says, defies logic. And he continues to say that when you see this, it's like complete devastation, and then completely upright and untouched and unharmed. And he continues to explain that this is defies logic, defies logic. And I am starting to agree with him that it defies logic, that, and this is the reason that I'm making this explanation now, that the earth is moving on a rotation. So you have these, the warm and the cold, and they're very stable because the earth, the sun is here, the sun's providing the warmth, and all of the space in the darkness has all the cold. It's moving very steadily around the sun, and it's rotating. And so the air masses, yes, they collide and have some turbulence. It's relatively stable. When you have a solar flare and you have high class solar and jet streams directed at the earth and making impact, they're going to bounce into the Earth's ionospheres and upper atmospheres, and some of it's going to penetrate and come through. And now imagine the globe is rotating, and it's relatively stable. So let's say that there is an ejection from the sun, and it could be whatever shape, but ultimately it's going to be a stream, and it's going to be relatively stable velocity of stream. Why? Because it's an explosion on the sun. It's an explosion. It could be a fast explosion, slow explosion, but it's going to impact the jet stream and the atmosphere in the same way. And the earth is turning as it's impacting, so it's going to be like, shh, and it's going to be turning. And so you're going to see this pattern on the weather. Okay, so if you want to explain this claw-like, tears, and now we're not saying this because, oh, it's, a collision of the warm air. We're saying this because it's 60 miles an hour, tornadoes, outbreaking, the sky is tearing apart. So we're assuming, okay, let's pretend that it was a solar flare. What could make this pattern like this? There's clear lines of interruption between the explosions. So let's pretend it was the sun who did this. It would have to be a solar flare ejection would have to be like a multi-ejection in that at the sun for it all to reach us at around the same time and literally go boom, boom, boom across the Earth's atmosphere, tearing these, and we're pretending that would be the reason why we're seeing this signature on the radar maps. And I'm, like I said, starting to come along the lines of this reporter's line of reason, that it defies logic.